In 1931, the most powerful crime boss in America stood in a Chicago courtroom. He had built an empire on violence, corruption, and millions of dollars in illegal alcohol. He was linked to one of the most infamous massacres in U.S. history, but he wasn't convicted of murder. He wasn't convicted of racketeering. He went to prison for something far simpler: taxes. His name was Al Capone, and his rise and fall would define the era of the American Mafia. Alphonse Capone was born in Brooklyn, New York in 1899 to Italian immigrant parents. As a teenager, he joined street gangs, including groups connected to organized crime in New York. He eventually came under the influence of mob figure Johnny Torrio, who would change the course of his life forever. In the early 1920s, Capone moved to Chicago, where Torrio had established a powerful criminal operation. This was the era of Prohibition, a nationwide ban on alcohol. But instead of stopping crime, Prohibition created opportunity, and Capone was ready to take it. After Torrio was injured in an assassination attempt in 1925, Capone took control of the organization. Under his leadership, the Chicago outfit expanded rapidly. Bootlegging became its foundation. Illegal breweries, speakeasies, and distribution networks brought in enormous profits. Capone also controlled gambling operations, prostitution rings, and protection rackets. At the height of his power, his organization was earning millions of dollars a year. He wasn't just a criminal, he was a businessman operating outside the law. Capone's rise was not peaceful. Chicago became a battleground between rival gangs competing for control. The most infamous moment came on February 14, 1929. Inside a garage on Chicago's North Side, 7 men associated with a rival gang were lined up against a wall. Gunmen opened fire. The event became known as the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. Although Capone was in Florida at the time, many believed that the attack was carried out by his organization. The massacre shocked the nation. Public opinion began to turn. Despite widespread suspicion, Capone remained free. Witnesses were intimidated and evidence disappeared. Authorities struggled to build a case strong enough to convict him. To the public, Capone became a larger-than-life figure. Some saw him as a criminal mastermind. Others saw him as a symbol of defiance during a time of economic hardship. The press gave him a reputation. He was untouchable. Federal authorities eventually realized that they couldn't easily convict Capone for violent crimes, so they changed their approach. Instead of focusing on murder, they focused on money. Investigators built a case showing that Capone had failed to pay taxes on his enormous illegal income. It was a strategy that had worked before, and this time it would work again. In 1931, Al Capone was convicted of tax evasion. He was sentenced to 11 years in federal prison. The most powerful crime boss in America was no longer above the law. He was eventually transferred to Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary, where he was held under strict conditions. Over time, his health declined due to complications from untreated syphilis. The man who once controlled Chicago's underworld began to fade. Capone was released from prison in 1939, but he was no longer the same man. His influence was gone. His empire had moved on without him. He spent his final years in Florida, isolated from the world he once ruled. Al Capone died in 1947 at the age of 48. Al Capone became the face of organized crime during Prohibition. His story represents the rise of the modern American Mafia, an empire built on opportunity, fueled by violence, and ultimately brought down not by bullets, but by the law. Al Capone ruled through fear, money, and power. He survived gang wars, he avoided murder convictions, he became a legend. But in the end, it wasn't his enemies who destroyed him. It was the system he believed he could outsmart. Because in the world of organized crime, power can make you rich, but it can also make you a target. If you enjoy real, historically accurate crime stories like this, make sure to subscribe to A Veil of Crime so you never miss what comes next. This episode is part of the Blood Oaths, the Mafia Files series, where we uncover the rise, power, and downfall of the most dangerous figures in Mafia history. Watch the full series to see how these stories connect, because every empire leaves a trail. And if you'd like to support the channel and help keep these stories coming, you can buy me a coffee using the link on the channel. Your support helps keep A Veil of Crime growing. Until next time, some men build empires, others inherit them, but in the end, every empire falls.